Hello and welcome back. In our last video, we saw the power of the command grep for searching through files. In this video, we're going to introduce another searching technique or searching command, and that's awk. Awk is a searching tool which is sometimes referred to as gawk, which is just the GNU implementation of awk. Awk will scan for a particular pattern within a file and grab fields that match the specific pattern or appear in a specific location in a line of text, and that's where it gets really powerful. So let's check the help documentation. It tells us here the usage, and we've got lots of different flags. One of the flags that we're going to pay very close attention to is the TAC-F option for field separator, and we'll talk about what that means momentarily. If we scroll down to the bottom, we have a couple of usages here, and you can see here we're referencing this as Gawk now. Gawk is a pattern scanning and processing language, and we have a couple of examples. So let's look at one of these examples, and we're going to pay attention to the second example here in terms of how we are using awk or the gawk command. So it looks like they're referencing a file here in etc password. So let's look at this file. We'll do cat etc password. And if you look, it's got a lot of information. And so I think this is a great point here to introduce a new command. So I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to call awk tac-h to get that help document up because I still want to have this right here. I want to be able to see the example. And so we're going to introduce a new command, head, which will only print out the first few lines of the file. So instead of calling cat, we're going to call head. And we only get the first few lines. So we can actually still see our example right here. So let's type this command. Let's type what we have right here and let's see what happens. So we type gawk tac-f colon and then let's see print $1 and then etc password. Okay, so if we hit enter, it looks like, if we scroll up, it looks like what we're getting is the first word or value in every single line, right? Root, daemon, bin, sys, sync, games, etc. A word or value being a string that is separated, it looks like, by a colon, right? So it gives us root, and then when we get a colon, it stops. Daemon, and then it stops. Bin, and then it stops. And if you notice here, our colon was given right after the TAC-F, or our field separator. And so the field separator tells you where your values stop. So we're treating root as a field, and then there's a colon, we're separating it. X is another field, we're separating it. O is another field, we're separating it, etc. For example, if we call this command again and we pass a different field separator, let's pass, we'll pass X as the field separator this time. So I'm going to get rid of the colon, and I'm going to pass X as the separator. It looks like now, instead of getting root, we're getting root with the colon because it's treating that field as root colon, and then we're separating via X. So our next field would actually be this whole thing right here because there's no more X's that appear. Very good. Now let's clear the screen. I'm going to call my help documentation here, and let's call the head so we get that file again. Let's change some of the parameters here on this command. First off, instead of calling gawk, let's just call awk and see if that will give us the exact same results. I think it will. I think these are the same command. And it looks like it does. I might be misspeaking here, so just as just forewarning you, awk and gawk, I think we can use interchangeably, at least for our purposes in terms of how we're going to use the command. So let's talk about for a second, we talked about the field separator, we can change that. Let's talk about these values, right? And so if you look here, it says print $1. That tells us here what we want to do is we want to print the first field or the first value given this field separator. And so that's why when we call this command, we're printing out the first words that appear, right? Because this is the first field. Given this field separator, the second field would be X, given the colon field separator. The third field would be 0. The fourth field would be 0. The fifth field would be root. So let's change this. Let's print out the second field. So what we would hopefully see here, it looks like X, 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 X. We should just print out a long list of X's if we change the field value from 1 to 2. And hey, look at that. It does exactly what we want. It changed everything to X. And we can actually print out multiple fields in here. So if I do $2 and let's do $1 for the first field and 2 for the second field. If you look, it looks like it kind of just tacked it all together. So let's add a space. So the space character we have to put inside of quotations. And if we do that, there we have it. We've actually printed out multiple fields together. Great, so that was kind of like our pre-built-in example. Let's see if we can do this with a different command. So let's do ifconfig. So I'm going to clear the screen. And so we kind of worked with ifconfig a bit, and we got our IP addresses. But if you remember, when we did it, we got the whole line, right? It printed out this whole line. But maybe what I just want is just this value right here, the IP address, so I can do some work with it later on. So first, we're going to walk through this maybe step by step. So let's first call the ifconfig file command, and let's redirect the output into a text file. So we'll say network info. And so this is kind of a review of what we had done previously. So if I cat network info, we see that there is our output. Now let's call grep, and we're going to, let's see, search for, we want whole words, inet. So we get lines that only have the characters inet in them. And we're going to search network info. And we're going to redirect, right? If I just call this right now, here's those two lines. So I'm going to call this again, but I'm going to redirect the output into another text file called IP lines. Okay, and so there's that text file now. So if I cat IP lines, we have exactly what we had previously seen. And now what I want to do is I want to use awk to get just these IP values, all right? So it looks like we have to talk about maybe what the field separator is going to be for awk. So it looks like information is separated by a space here. So our field separator is going to be a space, and we want the second field of each line. So I'm going to type in awk tacf for our field separator. Our field separator is going to be a space, which we have to put inside of quotations. And then I'm going to type, all right, print. And we said we wanted the second field. And we have to give the file that we're going to search through, IP lines. And so when I do this, hey, look at that. We get just those two IP addresses. And so I can redirect this into a text file. I'll say current IP. And so now when I cat out current IP, there we have it. And so we sort of walked through that whole process, step by step by step. Maybe not the most efficient way to do it, right? So let's look at doing it another way. Let's remove current IPs, let's remove IP lines, and let's remove network info. All right, so all of that's gone. And let's do it all in one line now using pipes. And so we're going to use piping to make this really efficient. So I'm going to call the ifconfig command, and I'm going to pipe the output into the grep command. Given grep, I want to search for whole word patterns, and I'm going to search for inet. I don't have to give a specific file here because we're getting the input from the pipe, which was the output of ifconfig. The output of the grep command, I now want to pipe into the awk command. So I'm going to pipe this into awk. I have to give the field separator, which we said was going to be a space. And I then want to print the second field, which is what's going to contain our IP address. And this, I now want to redirect into a text file called IP, or we'll call it current IP. So if I click enter, doing this all on one line, it looks like we've got the file. And if I cat current IP, there we have it. So this is the power and efficiency of this line right here is amazing, right? We were able to do something extremely quick that took us multiple steps prior. Let's do this with maybe PS now as well. So let's see, PS TAC EF, right? We've seen this command. This lists everything that's running on our machine. I've got some that are run by root, and I have some that are run by Mike, my current account. Let's say I want to get a list of all of the process IDs, the PID numbers that correspond to processes that are owned by the user Mike. So that's what I want to do right now, all right? And we're going to do this all on one line. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clear we'll keep this up. I'm going to call PS TAC EF, and I'm going to pipe the output to grep. I want to grep for lines that contain the pattern Mike, all right? And I'm going to pipe that output to the awk command. My field separator, if we look, it looks like our fields are separated by white space, so space. And then I'm going to print. This is the first field, we want the second field to get the PID numbers, so $2. And I'm going to send this, redirect this to a file called PID. We'll call it Mike PID. So when I click enter, it looks like that command has worked. I'm going to clear the screen. We'll do ls. We've got our file Mike PID right here. And so if I cat this, there we have it. All of the process IDs that correspond to the user Mike. Let's just verify this. Let's just do PS TAC EF. Right, 1108. Oh, did I not get? Oh, maybe that one just opened up. Oh, 1108 was root. Good. See, that was corresponding to the root user. So our first one should be 1113, and that's exactly what we have here. Wonderful. Let's clean up. I'm going to clear the screen and remove current IPs, remove Mike PID, and it looks like we're back to where we started. So now within our toolbox, we have some really powerful searching tools using grep, awk, and piping, and you can see how we take what could be a kind of multi-step process, and we can do some really powerful commands in one line right here in the terminal. In our next videos, we're going to build on these skills. I look forward to seeing you then.